Hey everyone, welcome to Black Swan Revelations. I don't know if you guys know this right now, but I'm kind of a big deal. In Canada, I am a big deal. Well, okay, maybe not in Canada. Maybe in Alberta, I'm a big deal. Well, to be honest, maybe not so much in Alberta, but maybe in Cochrane. Cochrane, I'm actually a big deal. Maybe not in Cochrane. In my home, I am a big deal. In my office, I am a big deal right now. I think this kind of narrows it down, right? I thought it would be important to read some of my comments because there are people out there that are saying, Shane, you think you're a big deal when you do your stuff on YouTube and all this. You think you're so hot. You think you're so special. You think you're smarter than everyone. I don't see what the problem is here. I really don't. I don't see what the problem is. If you don't understand me, if you don't get my humor by now, you may never get it. My friends and I joke like this a lot, and same thing with my siblings. And my mom knows I'm a big deal. She knows I'm a big deal. I think if I were to talk to her, I think I'm a big deal. I think I'm a big deal to my wife and my kids. But other than that, it kind of doesn't really matter outside of that circle. But if I come across as saying things like I'm a big deal, it kind of, I don't know. Maybe I should post like a hurt feelings report or something so that you guys can fill it out and then send it in somewhere to somebody that actually cares. Somebody actually cares. All right. So what I wanted to do is I wanted to read some comments that I've had. And yeah, Samson was a big deal until Delilah ran into him. Yeah, David was a big deal in Israel, but at home he was a mess. I agree. I think it's better to be a big deal to Christ than anyone else on the planet. Because I do feel like I was a big I'm special because Jesus Christ died on the cross for me. And maybe that's not what the comments, I'm going to read an email that I got from someone. Maybe that's not what she meant. Then maybe I come across as, brass, arrogant, all this kind of stuff. But you have to understand when you go onto YouTube, you have to have thick skin. And sometimes, yeah, you might come across as cocky, arrogant, whatever it is. And I think that is the nature of YouTube, really. I think that brings out the best and the worst of us on YouTube because you're going live in front of people and you get people commenting every direction. Like I've been called just about every name on the sun, but I in every name under the sun. But really, when you think about it, like that makes us stronger. It makes us have thick skin so that when we do share the gospel and stuff, if somebody says, "Oh, I don't want anything to do with religion. I don't want the Bible. I don't read the Bible, nothing like this." If you don't have thick skin, you're going to be like, "Oh, you're right. Maybe I should go home and throw away my Bible. Thank you for that, Mr. Atheist. Thank you. Appreciate that." Like you do have to have thick skin. And I think sometimes when people write comments, there's something else going on behind the curtains that I don't know. I'm not a psychologist, but if you take time to write a letter or an email to me telling me that I'm thinking that I'm a big deal, well, you kind of have to, in some ways, think you're a big deal. And I don't think I've ever said it other than teasing other than maybe putting myself down or whatever. Hey guys, I'm a big deal. You guys should know this. Like that's not in me to say that. Teasingly, I can do that. I can do that with my kids or whatever. Hey guys, you know what? I'm a big deal on YouTube. But really in the grand scheme of YouTube, I am like a blip. I am like a dot, a speck that could fade into the distant light, vanish. My channel's so tiny when you compare it to others, right? But I have a voice. I have a bit of a following here, and we've got like a little tiny community here. We have a nice little community. This is like friends over coffee. We say crazy things and we rationalize it. We wrestle through our salvation, all this kind of stuff. Yeah, I put my opinion on. Sometimes I make mistakes, whatever it is, but it's up there for people to pick apart, yell at it, scream at me, throw shoes at your screen, whatever it is. So I'm just going to read a comment. Let's just see here. All right. All right. So I'm going to read this, and I want your guys' opinion in the comments, and then maybe this will help me be more in line with people and not be so arrogant, Maybe I need to tone it back a bit. Okay, this is from Jill. I won't say her last name to protect her, but it's from Jill. And it was 6 o'clock in the morning. So she was up early thinking about this. Hello, brother. I cannot believe how many times you emphasized you're not important. You really think you are that important? Question, over and over. I understand what you're saying. However, here's the problem. Please understand. You had the opportunity to get many people to listen to your videos and ideas, new people searching for God. And what did you do that will permanently stick in their minds? You insulted them, telling them over and over they are not important. I have listened to you for a while. I understand what you are saying, but new people, confused people, etc., do not. These people clicked out immediately upon being insulted. Who wants to hear that they are not important? You people on MeTube, you need to stop thinking about yourself as some Johnny Carson, Letterman, etc. Geez, Shane, you put out videos how many times a week? ... Question mark. For money? I don't know. And please, not everything is a black swan event. As soon as something happens in the news, there you are right away with the video. Was this a black swan event? As we watchers over say ... Gee, if someone stubs their toe last night, Shane would have a video out. It's a black swan event. You cry black swan event, so many times it has become Chicken Little. Do you do these videos by yourself? I may add ... to feel important. Sorry, but we are not that impressed with you anymore. You are not Bob Barber, Kevin, John, etc. You have become, sadly, just another clown on MeTube. Sorry to be snarky, but you really blew it this time. You really need to play back that video and get this. Get over yourself. You are not that important. I'm so hurt. Where's my hurt feelings report? I need to fill it out. I'm not that important. Thank you for writing that email, because now I believe you. Now I'm going to walk around going, wow, I used to think I was a big deal, but now I'm not. So call a ambulance. I like that. It's so funny, right? But hey, I get these letters every once in a while, just so you know. I've been doing this 3.5 years. I've had messages from Joel Richardson. Remember him from FAI Studios calling me out saying, Shane, how can you lead people astray by talking about the pre-tribulation rapture? Stop lying to your audience. This is Joel Richardson reaching out to me. I didn't really have too much of an idea who this guy was till he reached out to me. And I'm like, maybe I should talk a little bit more about his channel and see what he's up to. And then I started looking at his stuff and I'm like, wow, this guy doesn't even know if he's saved or not. Like, he's like, oh, we don't really know we're saved until we're saved. And it's like, that's kind of interesting. Not what my Bible says, but I don't know what your Bible says. And he goes against pre-tribbers. He is just as bad as Rabbi Tovia Singer, who comes against Christians. Like, literally, he is blasting them every day. That's his ministry. But Joel Richardson spends a lot of time blasting pre-tribbers. He just goes after them. And I've heard him say things like they're under satanic influence. And then he'll be passive aggressive and say, please, like, we love you, brothers. We love you. We love you. And that's passive aggressive stuff. It's like somebody building you up and then they pull the carpet out from underneath you. So I've been called a satanic priest, that I'm not a true believer, all kinds of stuff. So if you don't have thick skin, then you don't belong on YouTube. You're going to just get whipped around by people that are hurt by the things that you say. And I don't think I've ever said that my subscribers are not important. I don't think I've ever said that. You guys are very important to me. You're very important. We have a tight-knit community. And sometimes I take offense to people putting down our community and whatever. They come in here and they blast people inside. I don't mind you blasting me, but don't blast my audience. Don't blast them, because then I will run circles on you and then I will punt you out. I'll punt you for going against my audience. But if you say things against what I'm saying, that's fine. Welcome to planet Earth. Welcome. And you're welcome here. Even if you don't agree with everything I say, subscribe to this channel. Disagree with me here in the comments. That's fine. This is how we wrestle through stuff. It's very difficult to do what we're doing here on Sunday. Why? Because if you stand up and start saying things, I don't agree with your message, you'll get escorted out of the church. You'll get unsubscribed from the church. That's called craziness. But here, it's perfectly acceptable to put people down on a channel and go, I don't like you. I think you're Satanist. I think you worship the devil. I think you love the devil. And blah, 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 blah. All this kind of stuff. Because they're safe behind a keyboard. Nobody ever, not that I'm a big guy, like I'm only 255, 6'1.25". Used to be 6'2", but I hunch. Nobody walks up to me and goes, I'm going to beat you up. You're a hypocrite. You're a Satanist. Nobody does that to me in public. Nobody does that. Instead, they go, wow, you're very friendly. You're courteous. And you're funny. You're confident. All this kind of stuff. I don't get the, you're a satanic priest. But here I do. And then I get emails like people saying, look, you're not that important. Well, I think I am important. And I think you guys are important. Even if you don't believe in Jesus Christ, you better believe you are important. Why? Because Jesus Christ died for you on the cross. But when I talk about the rapture and I say things like people won't miss us when we're gone, it's true. I'm not talking about your mom, your uncle, your brother. I'm talking about in general, in the masses. They're not going to miss you. You specifically. You do not matter to them. Why? Because they're more focused on themselves, and there is a great delusion that is coming upon the whole earth from God himself. What do you think that means? I talked about it in yesterday's video. I talked about it. When that great delusion comes, it's going to be information overload, and people will not care about each other. It's scriptural. It's in the Bible. People's hearts will wax colder and colder. What do you think that means? It means they don't care about other people. They only care about themselves. So when you come on this channel and you say, Shane, you are telling people they're not important. That's not what I'm saying. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying when we're out of here, people are going to be taking care of business first. That's their priority, taking care of themselves, their stomach, their wealth. They want to be able to buy and sell things. Those are the people I'm talking about, the ones that take the mark of the beast. Those are the enemies of God. If you take the mark of the beast, you have become an enemy of God. Why? Because you rejected him, and you rejected an angel going around saying, do not take the mark of the beast, otherwise you're going to get punted into the lake of fire. That's not me saying people aren't important. Yeah, you have to understand, when Jesus died on the cross, he died for the whole world. What does that mean? It means he felt it was important enough to die for you before you cleaned yourself up, before you took a bath. He died for you when you're wallowing in mud, in pig manure, eating the exact food that pigs were eating. He died for you. And then once you realize that, and you get up and you go, man, I have to know who this Christ was that died, the Christ is, that was, why he died for us. I have to know this. I have to understand why. That's the beginning of your journey. This is why Jesus died for us, is so that we can have fellowship with him for all eternity. So you are a big deal. My audience is a big deal. The world is a big deal. But there will still be people that will blaspheme the name of the Lord as they're being pancaked by 75 to 100-pound hailstones, shaking their fist at God, saying, how dare you? How dare you interfere with earth? How dare you pancake us? It's crazy, right? Yeah, this is interesting. 50,000 Japanese were imprisoned in BC. This is British Columbia in Canada. In the 40s, we bought their homes and businesses, and they were forgotten. Exactly. And I'm not talking about women that have their children in their womb missing when their babies get raptured. They will know something is up. They will know. They may not know why. They might not instantly know why. And the medical doctors are going to be confused as to why. But I think it's important to understand that when I'm talking about a massive event, a massive black swan event, no, not everything is a black swan event. That's why it's a black swan event. Like, if you don't understand that, you're going to be confused whenever I say things like, could this be a potential black swan event? Could it be? Because you can look at events and go, wow, this could trigger something that becomes a black swan event. More often than not, 99% of the time, you will get it wrong. Why? Because it's a black swan event. You're going to be wrong 99% of the time predicting black swan events, unless you're, what's his name? But is it, I'm getting mixed up with John Jones. Alex Jones, thinking of UFC, he got 9/11 right. And you're going to, let's just pretend, if you're to guess every day this year, 365 days, somebody's guessing as to when the rapture would arrive. On 364 days and 59 minutes and 59 seconds, those people are going to be wrong. It's going to be the person that had it right on the second that is going to be right. But again, when you're in the air, you don't care. You're not going to be like, oh, I was right and everyone else is wrong. Nobody's going to care. So most of the time when we talk about the rapture, we are wrong. You have to understand that most of the time we're wrong. Why? Because the rapture hasn't happened yet. So it's easier for people to chew on that and go, you said the rapture was going to happen by now. And they're right. They're right. Because we're like, boy, it sure feels like it's closer today than yesterday. And they're like, you said that yesterday. How do you keep saying that? Well, it's because it's also true that things are getting closer and closer, getting more darker. We're not wrong, but as to a specific time, it's easy to say you're wrong on predictions. It's easy to say that. Again, if you go back to Noah's day, they were mocking him. He was known as a preacher of righteousness. Preaching, what was he preaching? Well, that the world is going to end. And he was wrong every single day, according to them, because it had never rained and it had never flooded. The whole world had never been flooded in their time. You can argue it was flooded once before or several times before, but in their day and age was not flooded. So they didn't believe Noah until he went into the ark and the door closed. Then they believed, but it was too late. It was too late to get into the ark. That's what we talk about with the rapture. Like if you may not believe in Jesus Christ, but one day you will. That is a fact. One day you will believe in him. It just depends where. You might believe he's real in front of the great white throne because you're about to be cast into the lake of fire, and it'll feel pretty real then. But just because you believe that Jesus Christ is real, that doesn't mean you're saved. The demons believe in God and shudder. So the fact that there is a spiritual realm, the fact that there's heaven, the fact that there's an earth, the fact that that Jesus Christ exists, that doesn't save you. That's not what gets you in. You have to believe that he died for you on the cross and he was born of a virgin. That's so important to us. We have to believe that he was born of a virgin, came from heaven on his own terms, and then went back up on his own terms. He's the only one in history to be able to come from heaven down and then back up again. No one else was able to do that. No one else could predict their death with pinpoint accuracy like Jesus Christ did. Nobody was able to do that. And then come back to life. And because of that he actually died on the cross, physically died on the cross, and was speared by a Roman soldier to make sure that he was dead. So there's no question about it. And then they sealed him in a tomb to make sure that nobody could steal his body. And when the stone was rolled away, he's gone. He's gone. So when you believe, again, that he came to earth physically and he died physically on the cross and he rose again from the dead physically, and you believe that, you are saved. You're sealed by the Holy Spirit forever, for all eternity. It's pretty straightforward. pretty straightforward, and you are a big deal. You are a big deal. I was going to sneeze. I got to will myself not to sneeze. Went away. All right, so let's see here. Any more comments here? Christian Cortez, Matthew 24, 22, 26. And unless those days were shortened, no flesh would be saved, but for the elect's sake, those days will be shortened. Then if anyone says to you, look, here's the Christ, or there. Yeah, so for the elect's sake, that tells me that there are people that are special, that are important, because if it wasn't for them, all flesh would be destroyed. So unless those days were shortened, and we know that it's going to be about 7 years, no more, no less, as in it's not going to be hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of years. Jacob's trouble is only 7 years. We know that. Let's see here. What else do we got? Mockers and scoffers let us know we are still on the right path. Exactly. If you don't have any enemies, I would be more concerned from you. We need to have people coming against us. We need to. But if the ratio is like 99%, maybe you have to recheck your message. But if there's like 10% of people that don't agree with you, even 20%, that's fine. That's perfectly normal. And you need a few enemies that actually come after you and say mean things, because if you don't have that, then you're not really accomplishing much. If you don't have somebody going, I don't like you, I don't agree with your message, whatever it is, you need those people in your life. You really do. Let's see here. We are the treasure he bought the whole field to retrieve. Oh, I like that. That's actually pretty cool. It's almost like one of the parables that he used, that somebody found a coin in the field and then sold everything they had to buy the field, because what was in the field was more precious. And I feel there's something to that Jesus Christ gave up everything. He gave up everything. He emptied himself into a human being, into a body, a fleshly body that can be hurt, that he could be betrayed by a close friend, to feel every temptation that we feel. When we say temptation, we're not talking about, I need to go and sleep with someone, I need to go watch porn, all this kind of stuff. That's partially it, but that's not it. What we're talking about is the idea that Jesus had to experience every emotion that we've experienced when we are alone, when the world is against us, when we're alone and we feel like nobody thinks we're important or whatever. Those feelings are real, and Jesus had to experience them. He had to experience betrayal, and the only way for him to be emotionally involved in his disciples was to pour out his life for them for 3.5 years or 3 years or whatever in his ministry. He had to pour out his life. Why? So that he can be hurt more on the cross. Because if he didn't care about his disciples, and he always knew Judas is going to betray him, and he didn't care about Judas, like, oh yeah, I'm not going to stick my neck out for you because I know you. I know you're going to betray me. It wasn't like that. He treated them all equal. All of them could have betrayed Jesus at the same time or individually. They all knew that. And Jesus was experiencing that pain of being betrayed by someone that he loved, someone that was close to him, a confidant. That was Judas. And he was betrayed. Why? So that he can experience what we feel when we get betrayed. And if we get hurt, he has already experienced hurt right up to the point of death. He's experienced all pain, all suffering. He took everything upon him. all our iniquities, past, present, future. He bore the shame of us and was on a cross naked on the cross. How do we know this? Well, they divvied up his clothes. The crucifixion was the most shameful thing that you can do to someone at the time. It was the most horrifying, torturous thing that you can do to a criminal to teach them a lesson so that if their buddies are watching, they won't do the same thing, especially in that area. The crucifixion was the worst thing that can happen to you. And then not only that, but they put you close enough that people can actually spit on your face as they walk by, and you can hear their insults. It's insulting, literally. What? Too much product in my hair. I was actually going to put some more product in my hair. Thank you for bringing that up. Let's see here. You're very important to us. Oh, thank you, Cindy Ray. I appreciate that. My mom knows or feels I'm important, so that helps. She might be watching. She's in Cambodia right now today. She's visiting one of my cousins in Cambodia. And if you guys are watching, Kristen and my mom, I would love to have you as a guest on my show. Talk a little bit about what you're doing in Cambodia. Now, to be fair, we can't talk about certain things because where she is, she's helping out with freeing women from being trafficked for sex trafficking. That's what my cousin is actually doing in Cambodia right now. So there's some things that if she were to come on the show, she wouldn't be able to talk about because there are people that are risking their lives to free these women. And that's where my cousin is. And that's where my mom is right now. My mom is actually hanging out for a little while there. So let's see, what else do we have here? What else do we have for comments? Anything, while we're at it, if there's something that you think is annoying or you don't like, it's okay to share that right now. If you don't like my shirt, if you think I wear too much product, whatever it is, that is fine. It's fine. If you think I stutter, that's fine as well. Sometimes what I do, and I find this annoying, when I talk too much, drink too much coffee, or I don't have enough water in me, I get a little itch right here. I get a little itch. And I think most people don't understand that itch because if you don't talk nonstop for 2 hours, you don't understand that little itch that just sits here, just sits dormant. It's just irritating, just a little bit. I don't get it when you talk for like a minute and then someone else says something and then you say something and then someone else says something. I don't get that itch. But when you talk for long periods of time, like I do on this channel, it's all about breathing and drinking the right stuff, the right liquid. I don't think I had any water this morning, maybe a half a glass. Usually I drink about a liter or more before I jump on a podcast. But after I read this email, I'm like, I gotta move things around a little bit. I got to talk about these comments. And again, this is designed also to keep me humble as well. Keep me humble. Let's see. My eyes match my shirt. I guess I do like blue shirts. You probably know that a lot on my channel. I like blue. It's kind of funny, right? When you think about all the stuff going on in Hawaii with the blue beam lasers and all that stuff, it's like I also watched the world we left behind, and there's a lot of blue in there, a lot of blue. And I'm like, what are they trying to tell us? Let's see what else. Just looking for some juicy comments. I don't like when people all of a sudden turn into Bible scholars because I bring it up. I think I know what you're saying. If you bring up a topic, all of a sudden they know more than you about that topic, and they don't. But maybe they've heard it from someone else or whatever it is. I think that's what you're saying. All of a sudden they turn into Bible scholars. Yeah. Like, for me to be confident in what I'm talking about, this didn't just happen overnight. Like I've mentioned in other videos, I've read the Bible 14 times in the last 3 years. That has built up my confidence like you can't even imagine. Because I couldn't talk about things before because I didn't know where they were in the Bible, and I'd have to look them up. So if somebody's talking about something, about King David, I couldn't have a conversation with them. I would just have to listen, go, "Oh yeah, I'll have to read about that later." And then what I would do is I would go to comments and shortcode it and read what someone's comment is about that in order to have an opinion. But now I don't need to read the commentary because I have my own opinion. I can look at what other people say. Like right now, I'm doing a deep dive on early church history, how we got the Bible today. I'm doing a deep dive into Tyndale, specifically Tyndale, and then also diving into John Wycliffe and how he was one of the first people to actually translate the Bible into English, meaning the Latin Vulgate. He translated that in the late 14th century, early 15th century into English. So, but he used the Latin Vulgate and Latin resources to translate it, even though he did understand Hebrew as well and Greek. And a lot of these guys are what you call polyglots. I don't know if you're familiar with that term. I just learned that term a little while ago. But basically, the idea is these are guys that understand multiple languages. King James, polyglot, understood multiple languages. William Tyndale, polyglot. John Wycliffe, polyglot. Jerome, polyglot. All these guys spoke multiple languages. That's why they were confident in translating something to English or German or whatever. Like Martin Luther basically created the written German language because it was important for him to also translate the Bible. I believe he translated also from Latin to German so that they can have a written language. They can actually understand it in their own words. And these people were basically getting punished for putting a Bible into someone's hand. I mean, you get someone like William Tyndale that we were actually able to have one of the first copies of the Bible in print. And it's actually quite amazing because that only came about because of the printing press. Before that, you had to write everything out by hand and then write copies of it. And it was very labor intensive. I can't remember how long it took Jerome to write out the Bible. I'm going to say loosely, I think it took him like 30 years. I could be wrong. Maybe it was less than that. But I think it took him a long time to formulate his thoughts and then also be able to translate the Bible. Because back then, they had the Septuagint, which is also what a lot of the New Testament writers, the early church fathers, used also as a resource, because the Septuagint goes back to, I think, 200, 300 BC, where the Old Testament was written in Greek, because Greek was very influential in that region, in that area. It was Greek, Latin, and less Hebrew, more Aramaic. But the Jews that spoke Hebrew, that could actually write and speak Hebrew, were very small. It was a very small group of people. Instead, most people in that area, that region, spoke either Aramaic or they spoke Greek or Latin, depending what region that they were from. So there were a group of people that actually, I believe it was 72 scholars back in Alexandria that put together the Old Testament. They translated it from Hebrew to Greek. And then later we have Matthew, Mark, Luke, John, all written in Greek. And once you get the New Testament in Greek, you now have the complete Septuagint, if you will, and plus a couple of documents also from the Apocrypha. These were all the writings that were coming out of Egypt. And these were the resources that the early Christian fathers went to when they were interpreting the Bible. They went to the Septuagint. And then there's another pocket of the Masoretic text where they would look to those resources because they were Jewish scholars that were putting together the Masoretic text. They called them Masoretic. Is it Masoretes? But they were focused on the Hebrew scripture, preserving it in Hebrew. So that's also a resource as well. Anyways, I'm doing a bit of a dive on that. Much of it is new to me, and I'm very interested in knowing the history of how we got our English Bible, all this kind of stuff. Obviously, studying John Wycliffe, and then William Tyndale, doing a deep dive, and obviously the others. But it's important to know why we have the King James Bible in our hand. And I'm studying. I'm reading a book by I think it's called The City of God by Augustine. I'm also reading that as well. So I don't just jump on here and not have any knowledge about anything, about any of our history or anything. I love medieval history. I love that. I love early church history. I'm very weak when it comes to church history, very weak, because we weren't taught it. We weren't taught it anywhere. So now I'm doing a bit of a deep dive, and you'll see my channels over time start to reflect more of what the early church fathers believed and what they wrote and all that kind of stuff. So you're going to see a bit of a metamorphosis, if you will, with my channel, because in order to understand that, you also have to go back into the Old Testament as well. And I love Old Testament history. I love it. I love reading the Old Testament. I love studying the kings, love studying the Levites and how they worked in and out of Israel and all this kind of stuff. So that helps me when I start doing research regarding the early church fathers. So anyways, lots of reading, lots of research behind the scenes. And this is not counted for when I talk about my Bible reading, because in the morning I read. The first thing I do is I read my Bible, and then I do other readings in the evening, commentaries, whatever it is on, especially like I said, on the early church fathers. I do all that on top of my reading because my reading is the most important. I have to get that done and out of the way first and foremost, whether it's 5 o'clock, 6 o'clock in the morning, whatever it is. I have to, that's my priority. It's almost more than breathing itself. Because often I will come on this show and I'll just hit record. It's too late to read up on the subject when you hit record. It's too late to learn something when you hit record. You have to understand it somewhat before you hit record. All right, so let's see here. What's this? I don't like Bible scholars. They just quote a verse here and there from here and a verse from there. I need the whole chapter pretty much to have proper context. I agree. And maybe that's one reason why I don't memorize scripture. I'm not saying I'm against it. I'm just saying that's not my focus. My focus is reading the whole Bible. And if you spend time memorizing Jesus wept Jesus wept, and you're memorizing it from John, and then you meditate and think about what that means, unless you read the whole chapter or the whole story about Lazarus, you won't know why Jesus wept. You'll have no idea. So I find it better to read the whole Gospel of John And then you have insight as to why John was writing what he was writing, because you just finished reading Matthew, Mark, and Luke. And now you understand why John is honing in on some of the miracles that Jesus did, when he changed water to wine, when he walked on water, when he brought Lazarus back from the dead, and why it was important to John to write this stuff down. It's very important to understand that. And you won't get that from just reading one verse. And if Jesus is standing in the synagogue and reading from Isaiah chapter 61, you won't know it's from Isaiah 61 unless you read Isaiah. You'll never know. You'll be like, oh, okay, that's interesting. He unrolled a scroll and read something and then sat down and then taught. And the people are like, wow, this is amazing. And then some wanted to stone him later. Like, you won't get the context unless you read the Old Testament. Because when you read the Old Testament several times, all of a sudden, whenever Jesus says a quote, or when the devil quotes scripture and only quotes half the scripture and doesn't quote the other half, you have context now. You have context. And there are people that will quote scriptures, but it's not in their heart. It's not coming from their heart. It's coming from their head. And you can tell these people because they're very judgy, very judgy. They want you to do things that they themselves do not do. So when I tell you to read the Bible till your eyes bleed, I'm telling you from my experience of reading the Bible till I stagger, till I get so full that I just stagger back to the bedroom. I'm only telling you that because I've done it myself. I've sat there reading the Bible all day long, from like Saturday morning, like 8 o'clock in the morning till 10 o'clock at night. I've done that. So when I tell you to read the Bible over and over again, it's coming from a place where I believe in reading the Bible over and over again, the entire Bible, not just Revelation, not just Romans, the whole Bible. And not many people have a YouTube channel where they read the whole Bible. They read parts of the New Testament and then they watch what other people are saying on YouTube, or they'll read the commentary in their Bible and they'll make a video about the commentary, but they don't have the Bible in their heart. It's not saturating. It's not coming out their pores. And my family knows this. My family will vouch for this. I can talk hours on end about scripture. I can start in Genesis, and even my friends on here, Darcy, him and I have had coffee. He knows me. I can go on and on and on and on about something in the Bible. I can go for hours from Genesis all the way to the book of Revelation. And I'm not saying it to brag. I'm saying I wasn't able to do that 3 years ago because I never read the Bible as much as I've read the Bible right now. I think I could survive in a Turkish prison today because I have enough Bible in me. I could just go through it in my mind and be occupied by myself in solitaire. I have enough in me right now to feel confident to say that. The question is, do you? When you drive from here to work, 15 minutes, do you have enough Bible in you that you can think about something? That's the question you have to ask yourself. Because when you go to share the gospel with someone, you won't have time to open up the Bible and take them down the Roman road. You won't have it. And if you memorize the Roman road and that's all you memorize, but you don't read the Bible for yourself, they're going to call you on it. They're going to go, yeah, that kind of makes sense. But it's not for me. Why? Because they're looking at you from the perspective of being really, really smart. And they look at it and they go, well, I can't be a scholar like you. I can't memorize the Bible like you did. So I'm out. And you never want to do that. Instead, you want to be able to approach a person that doesn't know Christ from the heart of Christ. And the only way to do that is if you have the word written on your heart. That's the only way. Like, you can actually sit down with someone over a cup of coffee and they're going to feel the love that you have for them because of what Christ did for you. And you don't even have to say a word. They're going to feel it. Why? Because you're soaking it in. If you don't read the Bible, all bets are off. All bets are off. You can't argue with me. You basically count yourself out of the argument if you don't spend time reading your Bible. If you don't believe in reading the whole Bible, I will run circles around you when it comes to the Bible, especially if we're getting in an argument. I will run circles around you. Why? Because I've done my homework. I've done my homework. You're not going to snow me on something where I walk away and go, oh man, it's been years since I read the book of Joshua. I've read the book of Joshua 14 times in the last 3 years. So I know a little bit more than someone that has only read the book of Joshua once in 10 years. That's all I'm saying. The more you read about a subject, talk to someone that's read Harry Potter. And you've not read Harry Potter. They can go on for hours about Harry Potter and how good it is and the author and how they came about writing it. And they'll go to conferences talking about Harry Potter books. And they'll just say, this is the most amazing piece of literature on the planet. And they believe it. And they're like, this is amazing. I can't believe you never read Harry Potter. I have not read Harry Potter. So I would be lost in that conversation. I'd be lost. I don't even know characters or anything. I just know some guy in a broomstick flying around or whatever that they made an event or something at Disney World. That's all I know. I haven't watched any of the movies, so I'm not going to get in a debate or an argument regarding Harry Potter because I don't know anything about it. That's out of my wheelhouse. But I do know a lot about the Old Testament, and I'm continuing to know more about the Old Testament. And I would almost argue that I would be able to argue with people or have a debate with people that understand Hebrew or Greek. Not to say it in an arrogant way, but if you think about it, if you're studying Hebrew and you're spending all your time reading Hebrew, like understanding how to read Hebrew and the history and all this stuff, when are you going to get time to read the Bible in English? Because you're studying everything in Hebrew. When are you going to get time to interpret that into English? We already have the work done for us. It's in English. You can read it right now, and now you can study. Like, English is hard enough as it is my point. But if you get someone that reads Hebrew and studies Hebrew, but they don't read the New Testament, I'm going to run circles on them because they don't read the New Testament. They don't have Jesus in them. How do I know this? Well, they only study the Old Testament. And even if they were to study the Old Testament and say, well, I don't like the King James Bible or whatever, and then they read it in English, the Tanakh, that version in English is actually from the American Standard Translation. That's where they got their English from. So again, you'd be able to run circles on them because what they're using is, whenever they go to English, they're using an American Standard Translation in order to understand their Hebrew Bible. You got to understand that. And if they're not reading the New Testament, you're going to be able, even you will be able to run circles on them because you read the New Testament. They're not reading it. They're studying a language. That doesn't mean they're even going to know the Old Testament. Unless you read the Old Testament, you're not going to understand it. That's my whole point. I'm not trying to be arrogant, but sometimes we give people a pass because of their race. We just think, oh, because you're from the Middle East, you must know the Bible more than me because we're in the West, and it is looked down upon like we don't know anything about the Bible in the West. That's how it's viewed. People in the West, they don't know anything. And I know it can come across as arrogant and that kind of stuff, but I'm telling you, there are people that are more arrogant that don't read the Bible. They'll read a little bit and then they come against Jesus Christ. They come against God. They come against Christians. They call you names in front of you or behind your back. And they write books about why Christianity is a failure, why the church is a failure, why Jesus Christ never existed. And they'll spend time and they'll get money from people to buy their crap, basically, and sharing their opinions about why we evolved from monkeys. And people will buy this. Young people will buy this stuff and go, oh, well, this guy is a Jew. He's smart, but yet he believes we come from monkeys. Therefore, we should believe him because he's a Jew. You're going to get yourself into trouble if you go down that road. You have to believe in Jesus Christ. Once you believe in Jesus Christ, that will lead you to the Father, because if you know Christ, you know the Father. If you know the Father, you know Christ. If you don't know the Father, you definitely don't know the Christ. Sorry. If you don't know Christ, you don't know the Father. That's scriptural. That's scriptural. So you can't say you know the Father more than a Christian. You do not. You do not know the Father more than a Christian. Yeah, exactly. Same thing. When I try to tell a mechanic how to work on my car, I do this all the time. I think I know what's wrong with my car more than they do. I actually have to get my car repaired. And I don't know if this is a thing, but it feels like this is a thing where we, for the past couple of years, my wife and I have said that there is a problem with our vehicle, and we bought it brand new. And we said there's a problem with it. Kind of hesitates a little bit when you go to a light, and then when it turns green and you accelerate, a little bit of a hesitancy. And we mention it, and we're losing a little bit of oil. And we mention that. This is a couple of years. And instead, they're like, well, you know what? It's the catalytic converter. We're going to change that. And I'm like, okay. All right. We've changed 2 catalytic converters in the last year or so. And I'm like, this tells me there's something else wrong. That's a symptom. And they said, no. And they put the little notes in, customers complaining of a little bit of an oil leak and all this kind of stuff and blah, blah, blah. And they put it in. And then recently we took it in again saying, look, you got to look this over. And they're punching in, they're asking us what our odometer is. And we tell them, and they're like, oh, here's our, we'll do a complete report on you to tell you everything wrong with your car, just like we did last year. But we're going to do it again. So they write it all out, put it in a report for us, and tell us that our turbo engine is actually at fault. So they're going to replace it for X amount of thousands of dollars. And when we came in last year, they said there was nothing wrong with our car except for the catalytic converter. But now there's everything. And then they said, oh, but we can't, it's not under warranty. I'm like, when did the warranty expire? And they said it just expired. Like, oh, okay. So once my warranty runs out, so we bought a 7-year warranty so that it wouldn't run out. But once the warranty runs out, now you tell us everything wrong with the car? That doesn't sound very right. That doesn't sound ethical, Because we were asking you last year, every time you ask us for our odometer, how many kilometers we have, you should be saying, hey, you are 10,000 kilometers from your warranty running out. But they don't do that. Instead, they ask us how many kilometers we have on our car. They know why they're asking. We don't know why. Because in the fine print, it's 7 years or 128,000 kilometers. And once you go over those kilometers, then they find out all the problems. At least this is what I'm thinking, because I'm not a mechanic, but it feels shady to me. It feels really shady. Because last year we approached them with this problem and they said nothing was wrong. And they put it in the notes that the customer was complaining about this stuff. And they basically phrased it like, no, we fixed it. So I'm like, I need a second or a third opinion on this. I want the history of my car from you guys. I want you to send the history of my car because we bought the car from you, and you document everything every time we come in with a complaint to get it fixed, and it's never been 100% right out of the gate. I want that. I want all those notes because I'm a fast reader and I can read through the notes, and I'm going to see the odometer and I'm going to go, look, here's where we complained about this thing, and you said it was okay. This is me ranting a little bit here, but I'm not a mechanic, but I can read. And if I complain, or if my wife complains about something and you put it in your notes, and I look at the kilometers and it's under warranty and you don't fix it and you ignore it, we have a problem. Houston, we have a problem. And if you think I talk a lot on my YouTube channel, wait till you get me on the phone. I'm not going to let it go. Yeah, mechanics have thick skin. Exactly. They need to have thick skin. So, anyways, that's what we're dealing with right now. I try to avoid religious arguments or try to explain the Bible to them. If they know how to be saved, that's what matters. In fact, I know more about a book or revelation than them. Doesn't matter. It may not matter so much in that argument because, again, it almost goes back to tossing pearls before swine. Not to say that your friend is a pig. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying when you talk about Leviticus and you're talking about how it's basically a religious center, a hospital, and a bank all rolled into one in one book, and their eyes start to roll in the back of their head like this, that's your indicator to stop talking because you're losing them. That's your indicator. So again, it goes like this. When you see them do this and they fall over, that tells you to change the topic because they don't understand what you're saying when you're talking about Leviticus. I know this because my wife will do this when we're driving. I'll look over at her and she's cross-eyed looking at me. And I'm like, okay, I went too deep or whatever on a particular topic. And there's times where my wife will correct me and she'll say things like, honey, this isn't a YouTube channel. We're just having a conversation, because I'll go on and on and on about a topic, right? And even I've had some friends like that that'll be like, hey, you're doing a monologue, especially my kids. You're doing a monologue, Dad. Stop monologuing. So it's kind of funny because I've learned to rope it in, because if you talk about certain topics and they're not there, you're gonna see their eyes water, and then they'll do things like this. And they're yawning and they're biting their lip because you're talking on and on and on and on about the rapture. And they're like, I don't care about the rapture. I don't care. Or I don't care about the flood. I don't care. I don't care about Sodom and Gomorrah or Lot or whatever it is. And you see their eyes begin to water. That's kind of a hint for you to wrap it up. Talk about friends. As soon as you talk about friends, they're like, Oh man, did you see the one where Ross was bringing the couch down the stairs and they were going around the stairs down and they kept saying, pivot, pivot. Oh, that was so funny. Pivot, pivot. And you're sitting there and my eyes are starting to get glassy eyed. I'm like, oh man, can't we just talk about the Bible? Like, I don't care who's marrying who or who's sleeping with who and friends. Like, just, oh. So it's the topic. Like, if you're talking to someone, you got to find some kind of common denominator. And if somebody introduces the topic by talking about how good the Calgary Flames are, or how good the Winnipeg Jets are, what's going on with the Tennessee Titans or whatever your NFL team is, I know that's a priority for them. That's an icebreaker for them if they start talking about sports. If they stay in that realm, that tells you that your friendship is basically like this. And it's not going to get any deeper. It's not going to get any deeper. Or if they just talk about movies or whatever, and that's all they talk about, that's a signal to you that when you talk about the Bible and how much you read it or whatever, they may not be on that wavelength. They might be like, oh yeah, maybe I should read the Bible once in a while, ha ha ha, or whatever it is. They're not there. And they'll look at you funny because you don't watch sports. Now, the main sport that I watch is baseball because my wife is already getting ready for watching spring training in February. Like, as soon as January is over, my wife is going to be looking at me like, did you know that the pitchers are warming up right now? Did you know that? And then she'll punch up the data on her laptop and go, oh, huh. Did you know that this person got traded for X amount of money for this? And this person actually is coming over from San Diego. Let me just see if that'll work. And then I'll be looking at her like this. I'll be like dazed, right? But you can't let on that you're not paying attention to the roster of the second or third line, the second or third string in baseball. I can't let her know that. So I'm like really trying hard to pay attention to whether or not there's going to be 3 right-handed pitchers and then 2 left-handed pitchers coming up in the bullpen. I have to really pay attention to that. Who has a shoulder injury and which one had Tommy John surgery? If I don't know that, I'm going to get hammered by my wife. She's going to be like, are you not listening to what I'm throwing down? So I have to prepare for this stuff by watching hours of video to get up to speed to where my wife is at. And I can't match her. And I haven't found anyone in my friendship, in my circle, that can keep up with my wife when it comes to Blue Jays baseball. She knows a lot about every team and the rosters and who's being traded and all this stuff. I'm telling you, man, she's nuts when it comes to baseball. In fact, if I don't have the game on during the summer when she's coming home, I'm going to hear about it because she's listening to it on the radio. And when she comes in that door, it better be on. Otherwise, look out. Look out. I'm telling you, if you haven't seen my wife yet, very terrifying, very terrifying. She's about 5'1.25", but don't let that fool you. Don't let that fool you. When it comes to baseball, look out. Look out. I love my wife, just so you know that. I love her. But for baseball, I can't keep up. I can't. But this is one of the reasons why I don't watch other sports. Because if I'm spending all my time reading the Bible and I'm watching baseball, because I have to watch baseball with my wife, I'm not going to have time for anything else. I'm not going to have time to watch the Calgary Flames go on a winning streak or anything like that. So I get lost in that realm. Let's see here. Sports stats, not, yep. Speaking exactly what I'm talking about. Big brother Shane, just walk in different shoes. Yep. Let's see here. Yes, she loves the stats. Moneyball is also a movie that we watch every single year. We watch it at least once a year. It's usually in January or February where we'll watch Moneyball with Brad Pitt. It's a pretty good show. Pretty good show. I also like Draft Day with Kevin Costner. That's one of my favorite sports movies. And I love sports. I love jujitsu. That's one of my favorite sports. But again, it's all a matter of time. You can't have time to do everything. I also love golf. Like if I can golf every day in the summer, I would golf every day. But it's time, right? It's time. Oh, let's see. But I love golf, but I don't follow golf. That's maybe I'm not a real golfer, really. I could do golf every day, but I couldn't tell you. All I know is Tiger Woods and a few others. That's it. Let's see here. I'm just looking for some comments here. Stop monologuing. Oh, I did it again, didn't I? I did it again. Let's see here. It's like a desert where I'm at. I can only find brothers and sisters to relate to on YouTube. How sad is that? I agree. I agree. There are people that, this is why I think people gravitate to a channel like this, or Uptime Community Church, or Bible Study with Derek, or Prophecy Mondays, or End Time Talks with Josh. Like, people gravitate because they can actually play the video and then go clean the house or go for a drive, go for a walk with their headphones. And then they can actually listen to a podcast where somebody's going on and on about the benefits of reading the Bible every single day. That's the beautiful thing about YouTube. I do have a Spotify account, I believe. I think I only have one episode on there. So I've been asked to upload some of these videos onto Spotify. So I might do that somewhere over a weekend or something like that. But again, it's time, right? So I spend most of my time either as a guest on Uptime, and I'll be on Uptime tonight at 6:30 Mountain Standard Time. So you might want to check in then. It's just time. Like, you can't do everything. I'm not on TikTok, even though my sister sends me TikTok videos almost every day. But I don't have any interest in making videos on TikTok or Instagram or LinkedIn or Facebook or any of that stuff. It's just, this is kind of my world, and people know it. They're like, man, that guy watches a lot of YouTube. Well, I'm a part of YouTube. I like YouTube. I watch YouTube. I digest it. This is where I hang out. There are other people that just hang out on Facebook only. Talk to them about YouTube. They're like, I don't know what that is. What is YouTube? It's weird, right? Those are weird people. A video gathering for us Christians to share our thoughts on all things biblical with the comments section or live streams. And that's the beautiful thing about having comments. This is from Simply Steven 68. Thank you for sharing. That we can have a community here, because once the live goes off air, you can leave a comment, but it's not the same as actually reading the comments online. It's not the same, because you can interact. You can ask me a question right now and I can answer it live, like as though we were at a coffee table. I love, and Kino says, I like Draft Day too. It's a great show. I try and watch that one once a year as well. And some shows I can't watch. Like, I tried watching, what was it called? It's with the Kerry Von Erich brothers, the Texas Tornado. It used to be called that. Who was the guy that was starring in it? Zac Efron. Looked like he was roided up major. Like, his face was so puffy. I don't know how much roids he took to make that movie, but I for some reason I can't get through the whole thing. I think because there's some parts that are kind of dirty, if you will. And I'm like, I don't need to watch that. I get it. There's a document, like it's a movie about his life, but sometimes I don't need to see stuff. I don't need to see skin. I don't need to always watch a movie where people are cussing all the way through. It's probably why I haven't watched Goodfellas for a long time, because there's a lot of swearing in it, and it's a classic. It's a classic. But what I found was when I watched those movies, I started mimicking their sayings, and I would start swearing using their quotes. And I didn't like that. I didn't like doing that. I don't mind watching movies like John Wick or Matrix, all this kind of stuff, Star Wars, all that. But I don't like watching movies where it's just swearing nonstop. Why? It's not because I can't handle it. It's because I absorb it. And then I start thinking about swear words and all that kind of stuff. And I've basically cured myself from swearing. And I don't cuss anymore. I used to cuss a lot, and I used to think it was cool to cuss and all that kind of stuff, but now I don't care. And it's not like I have to substitute words or whatever it is. I could say things like, you are and that's it. That's all I'll say. But I don't drop F-bombs and all these things in conversation. That's why you'll never see me swear. I have over 1,000 videos. You won't see me cuss. I used to, but I don't anymore. And that's because I oversaturate my mind with the word of God. And you have to get to a point where you can actually control your thoughts. And this is what Paul talks about in Romans 7, about capturing every thought, taking every thought captive. I never understood what that meant before, but you can actually capture every thought. You don't have to entertain every thought. What does entertain mean? It means pushing play and watching every scene. It's like when you watch a movie and you know there's a bad scene in it coming up, a naked scene, a sex scene, you know you're putting in that movie, and right away that comes to mind. That scene is coming up. You know it, right? Especially people that are hooked on porn, they know what I'm talking about. You don't even have to touch the movie and you know what scene is in each movie because you're addicted to it. So what I do is I try and protect my eyes. I try and protect my ears. I don't listen to any crazy music. I don't really listen to any secular music at all. Some people would say, well, that's a problem. You don't listen to any music. You're not part of the world, whatever it is. It's an interesting point. I'm not part of this world. But if somebody plays me a song, I'm not going to be offended like, oh, no, what did you just do? Or if I'm walking through a mall and secular music is going on, all of a sudden you feel yourself humming to a song. Hey, I haven't heard this one since the 80s. I'm okay with that. I'm okay with it. Just on my own, I don't listen to the stuff. I don't. Because I'm trying my hardest to protect my mind. That's it. That's me. You could do whatever you want. If you want to listen to music nonstop and do a deep research on that band, and when one band member got swapped out for another band member because they got into a fight or an argument, and this is why, let's just say for Prince, this is why he wrote the lyrics to Let's Go Crazy, and this is why he did it this way and that way and not this way. For me, it's just fluff. It's fluff. It's not going to mean a thing. It's not going to mean a lick in eternity. It will not. It will not. The fact that Prince got how many Grammys? Don't know, don't care. Michael Jackson got how many Grammys? Don't know, don't care. It's not going to mean a thing in eternity. What will mean something in eternity is God's word. That's going to mean a lot. It's relevant for eternity. I haven't seen it yet, but I heard the plot. They skipped over that part. What? Oh, yeah, Iron Claw. That's the one. It was loosely placed on the Von Erichs, and they combined the fifth and sixth sons into one, to where they say 5 sons, and the oldest, Jack, was electrocuted at age 7. Yeah. So I get it. I understand. I love movies. But sometimes I'm just like, okay, I know enough, but I'm not interested. I'm not interested in their family to know their history or anything like that. It's just, again, I'd rather learn a little bit more about Jerome, St. Augustine, William Tyndale, John Wycliffe, and I'll tell you, as a new Christian, I had zero interest in the early church. So this was like, I've been a Christian now 30 some years, 30 plus years, and I had no interest in the early church, zero. But I also didn't read the Bible. So there's something to be said about that. Now that I read the Bible a lot, specifically the King James Bible, I am now interested to know how we got the King James Bible. And when you study Tyndale and what he had to go through to translate it from Greek to English and from Hebrew to English, and the fact that it was actually illegal to have a Bible in your home, and instead they had Latin Bibles chained to the back of the church, you can understand now why it's a big deal to have the Word of God in our hands. It's a very big deal. Let's see. I think The Last Airbender was one of the greatest shows ever. I'm trying to think if I saw that one. Is that the one with Harrison Ford where they had this kid and this kid was a protege and they had to train him and all this kind of stuff? Maybe I'm thinking of, was that M. Night? Is that the guy that made Airbender? I haven't seen that one. My son thinks Dune was the greatest movie ever. And I watched it at home. I should have watched it in the theater. But it was actually pretty good. But I had no idea what they're talking about. I'm looking like cross-eyed at my son. And I'm like, who's this family? It's like, oh, you don't know? These are the Kardashians. That's the Kardashian family. I'm like, oh, I never knew that. I can't even pretend to know what these families are in Dune, but all I knew was it was a spectacle. It was spectacular. And the second one was magnificent as well. Saw that one in the theater, but I don't know. They like sand, spicy sand for these worms that they're riding around on and all this. Like, it's cool, but I don't understand the lore is my point. Just like Lord of the Rings, I don't fully understand. I've seen all the movies. I read The Hobbit. I've read Lord of the Rings. I believe is mandatory in grade 9. You have to read it. But I don't study the lore. I'm not a nerd. I'm not a nerd like that to just go, oh, hey, do you know Gollum was actually this and that and whatever? It's like, yeah, I don't know. Nor do I care. But you don't say that. Last Airbender. Arrow on his bald head. Okay, that's M. Night. I can never remember that director's name. The guy that did Sixth Sense. I think that's the same guy. Great convo. Have a good day. See you later, Darcy. See you later. Let's see here. Gotta stay in the Word. Yeah, that's what I'm trying to say. Like, obviously, I have interests in all kinds of stuff, but this is really my hobby. If you think about it, YouTube, and then reading the Bible is kind of my hobby. I remember sharing that with my doctor when I was getting to know him. He's typing everything out, and he's like, "So, what are your hobbies?" And I'm like, The one thing that I could say that I do the most, it's not lifting weights, it's not running, it's not jogging, it's not squash. Although I do like squash, it's not golf. It's reading the Bible. That's one thing that I like to do the most. If you can narrow one thing down in my time, that is the one thing that my family knows, my friends know, that I read the Bible a lot. That's my hobby. That's my hobby horse for the past 3.5 years. So, yeah, Shyamalan. M. Night Shyamalan, if I'd say his name right. So, yeah, that's You could tell someone by where their heart is. I know it sounds judgy. Not judging, I'm just considering. You can know someone's heart by introducing a topic and then watching how their eyes light up. If somebody brings up the King James Bible in conversation, my eyes will literally fall out of my head. If I find a friend, and I have a handful of them now, they read the King James Bible, my eyes will pop out of my head if they know something more about the King James Bible than me. It's rare. It's rare now because I've done so much studying. I forget who it was that said this. If you read 6 books about a subject, you are considered an expert more than anyone else around you, more than 80% of the people in your sphere of influence. You would be considered an expert. So if I were to read 6 books on the Harry Potter series and someone does not read those, you would be considered an expert in that field because you can have an intellectual conversation with someone about that series because you've read them. So I consider myself somewhat an expert because I've read the Bible 14 times cover to cover. I know a little bit more than the average bear when it comes to the Bible. And that's not arrogance. It just means I've done my due diligence. I've done my homework. I've studied, and I will continue to study. And it's rare. I'm telling you, it is rare out there. Most Christians will read the Bible once a year. And it's 15 minutes a day. 15 a day will get you through the entire Bible. Maybe 20 minutes will get you through the entire Bible. And they usually read it Monday to Friday, and then they'll read a novel on top of it, or they'll read something else. But if you do that, you're not going to be able to catch up to me. You're not going to be able to catch up to me. You're not going to get the enlightenment that I have from reading the Bible over and over again. You're just not going to catch up. So the way to catch up sometimes is to come on this channel, and then I share some of my insights based on what I've read, and then you go back and do your due diligence, but I'm already ahead of you. Like, the only way to catch up to me is if you put as much time as I do in the Bible, which is a minimum of 2 hours a day. You'll have to double or triple it to get to where I am right now when it comes to the Bible. That's not arrogant. It's just, you just have to think about it on a common sense level. If you don't read the entire New Testament, you can't have a conversation with someone that has read the New Testament 30, 40 times. Like, it's not the same level of conversation. Instead, what's going to happen is you're going to be listening because you've never read it, so you don't have a voice in that conversation. So you have to switch it to something else that you're more comfortable with. And this is what happens to me an awful lot when you're in conversation with most of my Christian friends, because most will not read the Bible even once. So now there's only so many things you can talk about in regards to the Bible before they're going to get overloaded because they don't read it. But if you overload yourself in the Bible, you can have a conversation with someone that's overloading themselves in the Bible as well. And all of a sudden it's a nice conversation because they're like, yeah, I just read Isaiah last month or whatever it is. And it's fresh, right? That's all I'm saying. I'm not trying to be arrogant, but it's the same thing as when Kobe Bryant was here on Earth, when he was being interviewed. They were asking him if he was worried about the rookies that were coming up. And Kobe explained to them that what he would do is he would go to a practice at 6 o'clock or 5 o'clock in the morning. And then he would go to their regular practice at 10 o'clock in the morning. And then he would go to their practice that was in the afternoon, late afternoon. And so he would have 3 practices, whereas everyone else would have 2. So he did that for his entire life. So imagine going through college 3 times a day and getting into the NBA, and you're still doing it 3 times a day, and a rookie comes in that's only been doing it once, maybe twice in college, and then now is doing it mandatory, you have to do it twice. You're never going to catch up to Kobe because he's already doing 3 days. He's so far ahead that the only way to do that is to match what he's doing, and they don't do it. It's rare to have people go 3 a day. It's rare, but that's why he was the Black Mamba, because he would do 3 practices a day. That's why he got so good. And that's all I'm saying with the Bible is, if you don't read the whole Bible, it'll feel like I'm running circles on you, that you're like, oh, he's so arrogant because he's reading the Bible and I can't talk because he cuts me off and whatever. It's like, no, just have the Bible in me because I've read it a lot and it comes out in conversation. It's like a huge Rolodex. Whenever I have a conversation with someone, I have a Rolodex of the Bible that's going back and forth between Old and New Testament based on what they say. And if they say something like I'm washing my hands, all of a sudden I'm thinking about Pilate washing his hands, declaring that he's innocent. And then I think about the Levites going outside of one of the cities of refuge, finding a dead body and washing their hands because they go, we're not responsible for this guy's death. And mathematically, it looks like he belonged to this city. So that's what happens in my head. It's like a giant Rolodex that's floating from Genesis all the way to Revelation. And it drops down whenever I have a conversation with someone and they mention something. Maybe they mention a vow. Maybe they mention they got a stick. Maybe they mention a stone, whatever. Like, it's and boom. I think about King David grabbing 5 smooth stones. Like, it's actually amazing how living the word is. Exactly. We don't tell surgeons how to do their job, and they read a lot of books. All right. I have to go. I got some work to do. Thanks, guys, for watching. Hope you got something out of this. It's just a light conversation around the table, but I appreciate you guys. And again, join us tonight on Uptime Community Church. I'll be on there tonight at 6:30 Mountain Standard Time. So thanks again, and I'll see you guys in another video. Bye for now.
Black Swan Revelations here on YouTube brought you today's mind-bending journey. Dive into the discussion, your comments, questions, prayer requests, and powerful testimonies of Jesus' love are what fuel this community. Did today's episode hit home? Smash that like button. New here? Subscribe and ring the notification bell so you never miss a live stream or a video upload. Thanks for being part of today's adventure. Catch you in the next video, or maybe even in the clouds. Stay curious, stay blessed.